Here we go.
Hello, welcome back. Taking a bit of Mickey taking here, to put it politely, in the studio as we go into part two of a special Sheffield Live chat show here on Thursday with the historians of both the Sheffield football clubs, John Garrett of Sheffield United and Jason Dickinson of Sheffield Wednesday. Jason, you better remove this before I set fire to it or something after my terrible performance in part one of dropping the 1915 FA Cup winners medal brought in here by John Garrett. It's not dented or anything.
Not checked it yet, but you know, where his blame is a claim.
Could be an expensive show, this, couldn't it?
Could be your last one.
You'll make it severe.
Funny way under your nose.
Right, a little bit more on. Have you brought anything else in, by the way? Is that that's okay?
Got an FA Cup winners medal were enough. Now you've dropped it. To be honest.
That's you're not. Even if you did, you weren't going to give it to me, were you? Can I just reminded myself today of the history of the two in terms of success and longevity. Sheffield United formed in 1889 from cricket, always played at Bramall Lane, which is the old, you know, a visitor wouldn't guess that looking at the fairly modern stadium that there is there today, that it's the oldest ground that's been in constant existence.
Yeah, it gets longer than the explanation of it, but you're there or thereabouts. Yeah.
I know, various others claim it. I've been at Mansfield a few times. They claim it as well at Field Mill.
I don't know how. They claim the professional, don't they? But who was professional in the 1850s? I don't quite know.
And there's a break there as well in there with them. I mean, you can go down the line. If ever there was a sign, this goes back to what we've been discussing about how important the history of Sheffield football is. The ground's been there and fully functioning in one form or another, apart from when the Luftwaffe tried to take it out in 1940, since 1855. Yeah. And that's some record. But as you said, the ground is a very modern ground now, and it's changed a lot. Post-Taylor report since 1990, it's a very up-to-date stadium. But the footprint's exactly the same shape, it's the same size, and what you can never take away is the incredible first, not just Sheffield football, but world football that's happened on that plot. It's amazing.
It is, and sometimes you try and visualise it when you're walking there, particularly, you know, after a game, when you've maybe been on the touchline doing manager interviews or players, and then the stadium's virtually empty, and you're kind of trying to feel what actually has taken place there, like the first floodlit football match took place
how
there.
long have you got?
Test match. It's just incredible, the history. First Division champions, 1898.
Yeah, even I didn't work there then. Yeah.
That's. I was going to say. I was going to quiz you about that. What your memories were of that season. But if you know, if you can't, it's about time there was another. That's a fairly significant gap, that, isn't it?
I think we're one of only 7 clubs to win every division in football. So it's. I think we keep trying. But I mean, the setup's great at the moment. There's a great buzz around the place. I think football clubs, no matter who you are, it emanates from the inside out. And if it's right in the corridors and the tea room, then it tends to be right on the pitch, and it's a good place to be. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, not least now. As you say, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, long may that continue. FA Cup winners 4 times. The most recent was 1925.
Yeah.
You haven't got a medal from 1925.
I've got some. I'm not bringing them. You've got no chance.
It's
got shirts as well. We wouldn't dare bring one of those.
Okay, so 4 times FA Cup winners.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're going back somewhere. I'm being gentle here. You know, Sheffield United's last major trophy was, I'm trying to work out how long ago, 75 years plus.
Depends what you class as a major trophy.
That's 93.
So that's a Chris Wilder next time he's in, you might get a different response.
Yes, well, League One, but major.
So what are you saying?
Major.
You're getting a big hole here.
Yeah.
I mean, clubs, Sheffield Football Wednesday, like United, have the sort of periods in the sun. And again, we both said it, you know, somebody at some point decided that Sheffield would have 2 major football clubs. If way back in time there'd been 1 Sheffield club, who knows what would have happened in terms of the size. I mean, we both pull average gates of mid-20s?
Yeah.
Every week, 50,000 people watching football. Yeah. For 2 clubs, and we've not been in the top flight of football now for a decade or more. Wednesday even longer. So again, we reiterate what we said, it's a football city. But to me, it's irrelevant whether it's 100 years ago that you won your honours or whether it's a season ago. It's part of what makes you, it's your DNA. And we're intensely proud of that. And every football fan hopes that, you know, next season they'll lift the cup or the League Cup. Or that's what makes football so interesting.
Yeah, yeah. You give talks. I hear them every Saturday because I get there for Talk Sport around about 1 o'clock or just before. And I hear John Garrett droning on with the same speech, but of course it's droning.
That's nice.
I can hear you.
Listen, droning.
I can hear you from the TV gantry, and you're down on the touchline.
You have to project yourself.
And I know every word of it because you've learned it off by heart, and I hear it every fortnight. Yeah. So yeah, but it's very entertaining, I'm sure.
If you got people, we're all the same, aren't we? We've all got 4 stands. We've got a pitch in the middle. We've got supporters. We've got a training ground. Apart from the colour of your shirt, it's that little bit of DNA.
Yeah.
It makes your club special. It makes it what it is. And I think if you can't shout from the rooftops about what you are and why you are, then why bother?
Before we come on to Wednesday's history, Jason, you don't hear and haven't heard for a few years now this minority, and it is a strictly minority argument, that why don't they merge? Why don't Wednesday United merge and have more chance of getting the big honours?
Well, but as soon as they merged the day after, he'd reform Sheffield United and I'd reform Sheffield Wednesday, and then we'd just carry on.
Yeah.
And the one that's been the new one would just have about 10,000 watching it. Everybody else will be watching the.
Ask the Wimbledon fan what they think.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I don't think they'd agree with that, would they?
Well, sacrifice your history. You know, it's like changing your family name. Unless you've got a really good reason for it, of course, somebody looking for you. But, you know, you are what you are. I'm proud of my family. I'm sure Jason is. You wouldn't change that. Why would you? And
yet some fairly esteemed figures, and figures that, well, in one case, is a legend in Sheffield football, have been in favour of it. Because I remember in the mid-90s, 96, 97, difficult days, the Sunday Express got me to do an article about this merger idea that was kind of being kicked around, and it was strongly supported by both Dave Bassett and David Pleat, who of course both had recent spells.
Both born and bred Sheffield, is it?
Yeah. Well, this is it. This is the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the difference. With cold logic, they were both saying, you know, they couldn't at that time see Sheffield being a power in football again for quite a long time. And well, they've been proved right in that respect. Yeah. You know, neither of them has been a major power in football since we did those interviews in about 97. So
I think that, if I remember that one, I won't disagree with. I think Dave Bassett said he could see it happening, whether he actually favoured it or not. And as you said at that time, but you ask it, no disrespect to Dave, who was a legend at our football club.
Yeah, I'm not knocking Dave, but everybody loves him, but I'm just
you ask a Sheffielder and a Blader and Owl if the twain shall meet, as far as we're concerned, it never happened, would it?
No.
But, you know.
Well, if they merge, there's no guarantee of any success.
No,
they could still merge and not win anything for 50 years.
Yeah,
correct, yeah.
And I'm totally sold on your argument, by the way, but just to be devil's advocate, 50,000 crowds possibly every,
I would probably say unlikely.
I'd agree with Jason on that one. I'd have no allegiance to anything like that.
You wouldn't just add the two averages together.
No.
A lot of people would just not watch football. They'd probably go and watch Hallam or Sheffield.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'd go and watch Hallam if it happened.
That's how.
If it ever did.
I wouldn't want to watch anything that I've got no allegiance to. And I mean, I'm a Blade and Jason's an Owl, and it's deep rooted in my family DNA. Though half of my family back in the day were Wednesday, but to me, it mean nothing. You know, there'd be no relationship there. It'd just be something I didn't know and didn't understand, and I don't particularly want to get to know it.
It's great to hear that as well from another perspective, where certainly with the Premier League at the moment, we keep finding out that basically money is the god. You know, Scudamore gets a £5 million. You know, why they can't think that, you know, a round the world cruise is a sufficient thank you and a wave goodbye, I've no idea. The only thing that they think is of any value is a great wedge of cash.
Football clubs have gone bust for a lot less than £5 million, haven't they?
So, in terms of finance, you know, this idea, you know, one football club, you would think in a city this size could be quite a cash cow, but there are more important things.
Well, that boat sailed 125 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when that decision was made. It's never been negotiable since, really.
No. Okay. And we're ending that topic now, and a decisive answer from both sides of the city. So, Sheffield Wednesday, you're older.
Yeah.
Yeah. Formed 1867. Yeah. You're older. I don't suppose you let them forget that.
No, I think there's a phrase that sums it up. I won't repeat it.
No, go for it.
Older, bigger, better, I think is what we use.
Older, bigger and better.
And that's just the answer I want to make. You crack on.
You didn't use that M word though, did you there? I can't say that word, but I'll allow guests to say that.
Yeah, certainly older.
Hillsborough, all right. Hillsborough from 1899, First Division champions 4 times. Yeah. So you beat the Blades on
that.
As
well.
Yeah, 2 back-to-backs. Yeah.
Yeah, 1930 is the most recent. Yeah. Again, that's a long time ago, isn't it?
Well, let's be honest. For a city of Sheffield size, you had our trophies together, and it's just minuscule, isn't it? It's pathetic, really.
When you
think of Birmingham and Liverpool and
I try not to, but I know what you mean.
North London, Manchester, it's like we're well down that list.
FA Cup winners 3 times, including 1935, and that's the most recent. But also within our lifetime, okay, 1991. I remember it well. Great day at Wembley. Yeah. League Cup winners, the most recent major trophy in Sheffield.
I think I remember the semi-final more than the final.
Yeah,
the semi-final at Hillsborough. Well, they won 2-0 away.
Yes,
and they were 3-1. I remember them being 3-1 up in the home leg, and I was just panicking. They're going to Chelsea. I was just thinking they're going to blow it. And my mate said, "Oh, they're going to blow it." And then somebody said, "We're 5-1 up. We're 20 minutes to go."
You still think the worst, though, don't you?
Well, yeah, you get scarred, don't you, over the years?
Any football fan thinks
losing
the worst.
3-0 leads on multiple occasions.
I remember Danny Wilson scoring a great. He didn't get many, but he scored a. He scored a.
That's where he got his nickname, Didwell Wilson.
Didwell Wilson.
Because the gentleman say it's Palmer Didwell Wilson. That's where it came from. That was his nickname.
Was it? Oh, right, okay.
Can't remember the commentator.
I didn't know that. Danny's in, by the way, in December here. He's making his second appearance.
That's my regards.
Yes, I will, yeah. Before we continue, and I know you've both got books to plug and various other things to say. At this point in time, most weeks I hand to James Gregg, who sits here, but he's found something better to do. He's in Sri Lanka, as viewers here a week ago know. He's there doing some work associated with the England cricket tour. He keeps presenting things like the Barmy breakfast on the Barmy Army England website, you know, things like that. And we heard from him from Sri Lanka last week, and he was only supposed to be there for a few days, but he's still there. So, you know, he's made a good choice. So I'm going to attempt his weekly roundup. Okay, so he mentions the local football scene, and it's particularly important this weekend because it's international break, so there's no Owls, no Blades, no Championship, no Premier League. So it's an opportunity, again, to watch your local non-league team, and nearly always you get a good game if you go along to one. Sheffield FC, for instance, are at home to AFC Mansfield. That's 3 p.m. on Saturday at the Coach and Courses ground. Rival to that, there's a game at Sandygate, of particular interest, I'm sure, to you two gentlemen. It's Hallam against Ollerton. I'll come to that reason in a minute. Hallam going great at the moment. They had a 5-0 win at Harworth Colliery this week. They're doing fantastically well. I hope they can get promotion this season. But this event on Saturday, the home game against Ollerton, is going to be a celebration of the life of the founder of Hallam FC, John Shaw. I think it's about 100 years since his death, 100 years on from his death. And there's a very worthy fundraising campaign to create a permanent memorial to him, because apparently Shaw rests in an unmarked grave in Birmingham. So it would be very good to honour this, you know, very important Sheffield football figure, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, John Shaw, a name that's contained in various history books of Sheffield football. But wasn't he a player as well?
Yeah.
I've got a feeling he was a player, yeah. Continuing with the roundup, Penistone Church, they're away this weekend at Hall Road Rangers. Good luck to them. Worksop Town, you know, we go to the fringes of the area here, and Worksop are at home to Hemsworth Miners Welfare this Saturday. It's usually a very well attended game for them and other non-league clubs during this international break. And I mention this also because Craig Denton, the Worksop manager, is among my guests here next week. He's a Wednesday fan, by the way. Craig, you knew that, did you? Did you know that? Craig Denton, I'll have the pleasure of his company here a week hence. And he's certainly a passionate guy, because I don't know if you saw online his reaction. bear in mind, it was a 2-2 draw they had last weekend, so it's not the worst result, but of course we didn't see the game. And he absolutely ripped into him. It was a Bassett-esque interview following the game. He was threatening to kick players out and all sorts of things. The attitude described it.
Yes, they didn't come back from 2 down.
No, they nicked a point. They nicked a point later on, came back, got an equaliser. He said it was unacceptable. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Craig here next. I hope he hasn't calmed down too much, because we could do a bit of that here. Dronfield Town, they're at Shirebrook this weekend. Dronfield, a club that I had the pleasure of visiting for the very first time earlier this season. Very warm, very, very friendly, and doing well. And they don't pay their players anything. They don't pay anybody there. No appearance fees or anything. So they're, you know, all credit to them. Stocksbridge Park Steels are at home to Pickering. And that completes your sort of local football roundup. Just to mention, though, basketball, Sheffield Sharks are 3rd in the BBL Championship currently. They've had 3 successive victories, and they go all the way, it must be their longest trip, they're all the way down in Devon at Plymouth Raiders on Sunday. And finally, Sheffield Steelers are spending their entire weekend in Scotland. They've normally got a home match at the arena, but Steelers supporters are condemned to a long-distance weekend. They're in Glasgow on Friday and they're in Fife on Sunday. I'm not sure where Fife is, by the way. Have you?
Scotland.
I know it's in Scotland. Any idea whereabouts in Scotland?
No.
I've never. So it's great to hear you two. And John, you know, in our pre-programme chat, you were saying to me quite genuinely, you're almost as interested in Sheffield Wednesday and the history as you are in your own.
Yeah, I love Sheffield football history, and I think the two, whatever banter we have in arguments, it's just like oxygen and flames. One can't really exist without the other, without the banter. And you should always know your opposition and your enemy. So yeah, joking aside, I read a lot of stuff, read a lot of Jason's books, and I think it just gives you the overall picture of Sheffield football. And I think if you can talk with some reasonable knowledge about it all, then it's not a bad thing. Yeah.
Well, it's always fascinating. This is one of Jason's recent books. There we are. The origins of Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, not so recent, actually.
No, it's probably about 3 years now.
3 years. But these things tend to be a slow burn. I've written books myself.
I mean, that one,
carry on.
like I said to you before, is a bit of a labour of love because it covers 1820 to 1892. So it's quite a specialist book.
Yes.
Bedtime reading.
Yeah, bedtime reading. If you've got an interest in Sheffield football, then it's fine. But you're not going to get many 14-year-olds probably buying it.
No.
But it's done okay.
And the ones that do, you've got to worry about.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they need to get out more, don't they?
Yeah. So what about it currently? You're both keen supporters. You both go to the games, and Jason, what do you make of it at
I think the word is transition, isn't it?
It's a good word. I use it all the time in my column. Yeah, it's a polite word.
Yeah, when they're rubbish, they're in transition, and when they win, they're in transition. So I think they're definitely in transition. I don't know which transition into what. I don't know, but we'll see. They're going to have to just bounce along in mid-table if they can and clear out in the summer and take it from there.
Is that going to be the best of it?
Well, I can't see any way around it. And try and maybe sell a couple of players if they can along the way, just to balance the books.
That's regrettable because the player you can only sell the players that are your best players who come on money.
And if you're 17th in the league, then you ain't got that many players that are standing out, have you?
No, you haven't. Well, we can think of 2, can't we?
Yeah. But really, they're going to have to sell one. It's as simple as that. Unless suddenly they're going to get some money from somewhere. It's just a basic profit and sustainability issue.
All the players that are out of contract, and there are many next summer, actually them going doesn't actually
because it's this season where they'll be penalised. Obviously their wages are still in, aren't they? Even though they'll have gone on the 30th of June, all those wages will be in this financial year. So it's not going to help them. It'll help them for the year after, but they'll already hit financial problems by then. So
a man I feel a lot of sympathy for is the manager, Jos Luhukay. And I got a sense this week when I wrote a column just pointing out the difficulties of the job he's got. And while I accept that fully that he's made too many changes, has made some mistakes or whatever, and that Wednesday should be higher in the table than they are, I accept totally all of that. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because players he's criticised for not using almost certainly going to be leaving the club.
Yeah, and if they were fit, debatable whether they'd be anyway, some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are injury prone. some of them weren't getting in when they were actually in the squad. They weren't even making the match day 17. So you just can't say these players would come in.
No.
You know, not naming any names, but a lot of them had not played anyway.
No.
Or they were injured.
It's the kind of thing that people reach for to use as weaponry in criticism when a team's losing. I didn't hear that a few weeks ago when they were doing comparatively well against him.
I mean,
and he was being praised for bringing the young players in. It's all about results.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his faults, but clearly he's had a bit of a raw hand. I mean, when you consider last Friday, one of his first games was also a 0-0, and he went into both games with a lot of kids.
Yes.
And with most of his senior players injured, so he's not really made any progress.
And
some of it's not through his own fault, admittedly.
No.
You know,
the 4 younger players who were in the team at Bramall Lane really distinguished themselves. I thought
they've done fine. Yeah.
4 of them in a pressurised derby like that, and I know full well that some very high up figures at Bramall Lane were equally impressed with the Wednesday youngsters there.
It's about time we brought some through. These lots have been bringing them through for years, it's about time we got some. And our under-18 team's going brilliantly this season as well. 5 points clear at top at league, and in fact we play United next, so that should be interesting. Yeah.
Well, this augurs well, and that is the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, isn't it? When you're going through a time like this. John, I mean, like everybody, you know, who goes to Bramall Lane, it's just a wonderful experience at the moment, isn't it? See the team play. Yeah,
I mean, weight on it. We've had some lean years and no mistake, but I've always been a believer that football clubs go bad from the inside out, and you only really, when you start seeing disruption on the pitch, it's a long way down the line already. It's a great place to be, and I don't just say that. I mean, in the morning, if you look forward to going into work, I mean, I always felt very privileged that I work for the football club I support. But there's a buzz about the place, there's a banter about the place, there's a life about the place. And I think when it's like that, it lifts everything. And we always sort of bang on about being a family club. It is a family club. You know, I've got a lot of staff at United who work with me 20, 25, 30 years. And in football, where your life expectancy is quite short, it's unusual. And it really does breathe for a strong atmosphere, of course, in the dressing room as well with the manager and everything else. It just works. You know, it's spot on.
And bearing in mind the political problems that I know that you don't want to get too heavily involved in, you know, wouldn't it be good if they do, as a football club, seize the initiative in the January window and follow through on what has been started?
Yeah, I mean,
it's vital, isn't it?
There's a job there to be finished, and as you're right, it's not my position to comment on anything like that. But I think when the infrastructure itself is so good, then from a fan's perspective, you know, you really do hope that they can push on. And there's never been a better time for us. I mean, in the city, Jason hit the nail on the head, it's a transition time across the city. With us, the building blocks have already been put in. There's ambition there. They all sign up to what the manager wants. They know how he wants to do things, and I think that's important. And you would hope that if there's an opportunity to kick on, particularly in January, then we'd do it,
Let's hope so. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, gents. I did tell you, I promised you that we'd finish in time for the England game, so you can switch over for that now. You've got our permission. They're not bothered. I'll hair off to watch it probably, the second half at least. Thank you very much for your company. As ever, we'll have another show next week. Craig Denton is here. I know also somebody from Steve Wormsley, actually, from War of the Monster Trucks. You know that Wednesday fanzine's going to be here because there's a special commemorative edition.
Print version, I believe,
yeah, coming out shortly, and there might be another guest as well. I'm never quite sure, 1 week to the next. This will be on my YouTube channel this evening. If you missed, I shall post tweets on Twitter and give you the links to those. It'll also be repeated at 11 p.m. Meantime, John Garrett, thank you so much, and Jason Dickinson. It's been a real pleasure. Great out. See you next week, by the way.